That's a really good question. When people are afraid to actually try something with art, with anything, the I think the overriding fear is fear of failure. I'm going to do something that doesn't look good. I'm going to make myself look silly. That's a pretty common fear, and it stops a lot of people doing a lot of things. I think one of the most beneficial things you can do is get involved, say, with an art group. Just start talking to other people, and you'll find that they share the same sorts of fears and have strategies for overcoming them. I would highly recommend getting a hold of a copy of The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. A game changer of a book, just magnificent. I don't know how many times I've read it. It's not a long book, but it's invaluable, especially for getting a handle on the ways that you get in the way of yourself, and you start to doubt yourself. You start to procrastinate. There are a whole bunch of ways that this fear can manifest itself. So getting in touch with that is helpful. But just getting out there, just doing, putting that aside, get out there, produce art. Realize that you're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. No matter what your skill level, no matter what your experience, you're going to make mistakes, and that's just part of the game. I'd also recommend getting just a small sketch pad. Get yourself some pencils, an eraser. You don't have to have high-tech equipment. And get out there and draw. Get out to a gallery is a good place to go, because there's usually paintings that you can stand in front of and do some sketching, or even better, sculptures, statues, where you can move around. You can actually get around and see get different viewpoints, and that's really, really helpful. This is where the fear thing comes in. Even I've found myself when I'm going into a gallery, especially one that I haven't been to before, and I get a sketch pad, it's kind of like, well, what are people going to think? Who cares? No, and really, nobody thinks anything of it. You occasionally get some people looking over your shoulder, even if you don't. You're there for yourself. You're not, as long as you're not interfering with anybody, then I think that's fine. I don't see it doesn't make any difference. And if you're out there drawing to improve your skills, improve yourself as an artist, then why not? Just do it. It's good fun. Coming up, I'm going to be writing a whole bunch of downloadable lessons that you can purchase from our website based on something small. Might be just a basic still life, things like that. And I'll be taking people through the steps that I would take to actually get something basic down and evolve it further to a stage where it's more realistic, if that's what you want to achieve. And that's personally my style. I like realism and representational art. So that's what I tend to focus on. And the only way to do that is to practice. You have to sometimes be very tough on yourself, but be gentle with yourself too. So learn from your mistakes, realize you're going to make mistakes, and just try to be a better artist today than you were yesterday. Sure, there are quite a few ways that you can actually try to guarantee more years. My top 3 tips for achieving accuracy in your drawing. First of all, have a proven system. Have a system that allows you to troubleshoot as you go. Obviously, you want to try and make as few mistakes as you can. You don't want to be constantly fixing mistakes. So if you've got a system that helps you achieve the basics pretty much straight away or very early on, so you're doing less correcting later on, that's the best way. So I like to focus on what I call the big 5. For me, the big 5 is proportion, and then that's followed by alignments, which are vertical and horizontal alignments, then angles, and then shapes and negative spaces. The alignments and angles are kind of related. Alignments, I'm talking strictly vertical or horizontal. Angles are kind of like alignments, but not surprising, at an angle. When it comes to shapes So you're standing back and you're looking at a basic shape. Just try and look at it as purely a shape. Don't give it a label, it's just a shape. And negative spaces are the same thing, except they're kind of like the shape around the shape. If you think of it in terms of a fingernail, all right? Fingernail has a shape. Usually give that a label, but if you can think of it just as a shape. Negative space would be around the fingernail. Or in the case of, say, if you're drawing a hand, right? You can look at the fingers as the shape. Negative space is the shape around, so around the hand. That can help you a lot, especially when you say you're drawing, drawing anything, but portraits. If the head's on an angle and you're looking at the neck and the shoulder, you might have the head right, you might have the neck right, or think you have it right, but then you look at the negative space and you go, ooh, that's not the same as what I'm seeing, so something's gone wrong. So the good thing about the big five is that they all kind of interact with each other. If one goes wrong, the others usually are able to help you sort it out. I've actually got a downloadable ebook available on my website, fredwhitsonart.com, that helps you through all this stuff. It's about mastering accuracy in your art, so you can download it. Go to the site, easy to download, and you get some limited support as well. Next tip is to remember to step back from your work. That's probably, that's an area that I need to remind myself to do quite a bit, is to step back from your work so you can get a really good perspective on what's happening. Often when you're too close up, you can't get a true picture of how everything's interacting with everything else on your page or your canvas. So step back and have a look. Or even better, if you're feeling a little bit fatigued, mentally fatigued, and I do, if I've been concentrating for a while, I'll have to just have a rest. We'll talk more about that later on. But just going away for 5 minutes and then coming back seeing it fresh, you can quite often pick something up that you haven't seen before. Another thing too is use a mirror. Use a mirror to look at your work in the mirror. That shows up a lot of stuff. I'm not quite sure why that works, but it's remarkable. You can have a look in the mirror and go like, I see where the problem is, and you can go straight away and fix it. I would say probably my third tip would be to squint. Squint often, and especially at the beginning. So when I'm doing, say, live drawing, or you've only got limited time, maybe anywhere from 2 up to 15, maybe 30 minutes to draw. And in the early stages, if I've got enough time, I will be squinting pretty much straight away to identify major tonal shapes. So major highlights, major darks, maybe some mid-tones. But again, that's to help me focus on shapes and how those shapes fit together. So rule of thumb, if you are at the early stages of a work, squint often. You'll be looking at major shapes, but also getting rid of color. Color can be a little distracting, and squinting tends to diminish that a little bit. You'll still see some color, but not as much variation in color. So top 3 tips, again, will be have a proven system. So in my case, the big 5. Next one is to step back from your painting or your work often. And also squint. Squint. Those would be my top 3.